Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Bom dia.
Bom dia. So let's just wait a couple of minutes so we can start with everyone in the room.
Okay, so it seems that the connection issues are being solved.
Yes, they are.
Only maybe some people still to join. But maybe, Raquel, we can start with our own introduction. That will take a couple of minutes more. It's not so much directly related with the subject, and then people will come in.
Okay, so let's start. So hello, everybody. My name is Raquel. I'm in charge of marketing and communication at OPCO. And today we are here to talk about important changes, to debate the topic, and above all, to pass on all our knowledge about this update to the Formel Q Konkret manual. As a company specialized in training, it is a great pleasure to be able to welcome you in a space that will be dedicated to you and to clarify all your questions you may have. There are no better people for this than our speakers and experts on the subject. We will have the privilege of having Pedro Silva, OPCO Managing Director, and Rita Rodrigues, OPCO Senior Trainer. Rita, unfortunately, won't be able to be with us live, but we've made sure beforehand that nothing will be affected and that her contribution, will be just as valuable. Introductions made, all that remains is for me to tell you the planned lineup for this webinar, in which after this presentation, an initial context will be given. Then it will move on to the more in-depth explanation, which will be followed by a moment dedicated to Q&A, so you can solve all your questions and doubts you may have. Then it will be closing, so we can finish the webinar. So, without any more further time, I will pass the word over to Pedro, and I hope you enjoy it to the full. And thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for your presence. I hope you enjoy it.
Okay, thank you, Raquel. Thank you for your words, expert, and things like that. So as usual in these webinars, our objective is mainly to share in both ways, to share knowledge, but to share also questions, doubts, to comment, and to have as much as possible a dialogue. So I also invite you to use the chat here to drop some questions, some comments. If you see, I just put, it's in Portuguese, but I will translate. I just make the comment to Henrique. Bom dia, Henrique. If some of you have to leave earlier or to be absent for some reason, not only during the webinar, but even afterwards, you can use, for now, the chat room here in the Teams, but as well as our contacts to drop the questions. Of course, probably will not be able to answer everything, but as usual, what we do is to answer as much as we are aware of the situations. And if we are not certain, what we do is to contact the proper persons, the proper entities to get the correct answer. And this is valid here for this webinar. And as Raquel was saying, my colleague Rita, she cannot be present. She is at a customer with a VDA training, but it was herself that went deeper into the changes. I will be mentioning now just to make a context, and afterwards I will be here also to answer as much as possible, because as you will see, we are going to enter here some fields that can may be applicable to some of you, maybe not so much for other companies, and we are entering more and more subjects related to cybersecurity, to autonomous driving, and to subjects that are coming, as many of you are aware, coming out from what IATF or even VDA are talking about software, but coming to other areas of that subject. So let me share my screen. Let's see if everything goes well. And I believe you'll be able to see the presentation. Let me just put it in presentation mode. Okay, so for now, I'm just seeing also my screen. So if there is some questions, please take note or drop it to the chat that will come back to them later on. My colleague Raquel will still be online and collecting also these questions. So let's go to the subject, Formel Q Konkret. Rita then on a recorded way will present more detail. We received this coming here to one of the situations that we must always be aware. I come aware of this news. I don't know if she's online with a friend that sent me an email if I had seen already the new Formel Q Konkret. Then I accessed to the B2B portal, to Volkswagen, and then I got the contact. This is one of the situations that we must pay attention in a regular way. Volkswagen, and this happens also with other OEMs, when it comes to their customer-specific requirements, as they are available on the IATF website, yes, in that case, we can, if we just subscribe with our email address, we get the information whenever there are any changes. Even last week, General Motors and Geely come up with new documents. A couple of weeks before, Stellantis and Ford, the same situation. So, but that is the IATF. When it comes to the portals from the OEMs, it varies, but in this case, from Volkswagen, there is no automatic warning. Yes, there will be when we enter the B2B portal, there will be the news, but if we don't do that regularly, we can run into troubles. So I won't take much time here. I will be speaking about a few situations, and as I can imagine, and I could see from the register for the participants, most of you are already familiar with Volkswagen requirements. Nevertheless, I can anticipate that for some other participants, maybe they are not so much familiar. So I will start to make a very brief introduction to what is Formel Q, then to make a broader context of what is changing for the automotive industry, to try to get here an interpretation of why this change now. I will be talking about a few topics from the new Formel Q Konkret and their implications to the supply chain. And then not too much advertisement for OPCO, but just to show what we can support companies in this sense. And then the last topic is already passing over to Rita to go in more detail. So what is the Formel Q? Just to explain why we are doing this webinar, maybe some of you have seen already this document, GPS PME Auto. PME as for small and medium enterprises in Portuguese. This is a document that we had been invited by Mobinov, the Automotive Cluster Association here in Portugal, to establish this document as a GPS, as we have in our cars, as a roadmap for companies aiming to come to the automotive supply chain. So we started, but at a certain time, for those of you who know where we are located, we are very nearby a Volkswagen plant. I used to work there in last century, so we still have some contacts. And talking with them about this, they demonstrated interest in that. So this GPS was built generic for automotive industry, but since customer-specific requirements are a fundamental part of it, we decided to use an example. So not only for the IATF certification, or then to bring the VDA standards or the CQIs to other OEMs, but to use a specific example, and Volkswagen was keen on participating. So this document, it was launched already 2 years ago, maybe. There was a new release in our Automotive Summit 2 years ago, and we are keeping it updated as such. So that's one way that we, as a consultancy company, find to keep ourselves also updated on these matters. But to give the context, and just to remember, I know that most of you are already aware of that. When we are talking about the IATF certification, we are talking about the IATF book with requirements. But sometimes it seems that it is written in code. So when you are going through the IATF, sometimes you find these words. When required by the customer, the organization shall do this, this, and that. So that is almost a code as to say, please go and see what your customer is requiring or what your customers are requiring. And then that's when we have first step to go to the IATF website, and you find for Volkswagen, this is just the front slide, IATF customer specific requirements from Volkswagen Group. So customer specific requirements are additional requirements to the IATF or interpretations to the IATF. For instance, Stellantis is asking companies to do the reverse FMEA. So it is an additional requirement. Volkswagen or others are asking companies to do internal process audits according to VDA 6.3. So that's an interpretation because IATF just asks to do process audits. Where there is a model recognized by your customer, you have to use it. In this case, VDA 6.3. But coming to the IATF side, pay attention, these CSRs are only for the IATF OEMs. OEMs such as the Japanese or the Korean or such as Volvo cars are not reflected there because they do not belong to the IATF. Maybe some of you are asking, but there is Volvo. Yes, Volvo Group, meaning trucks and heavy vehicles, not Volvo cars. This was one of the clarifications brought last week by Geely, that their CSRs apply to the Chinese brands, but not to Volvo cars. So this is the first topic. IATF is not showing all the customer-specific requirements, only IATF OEMs. And you might have customer-specific requirements from a tier one, that is your direct customer. For that, you need to go to the customer portals, typically. In Volkswagen case, this is just a print screen from the Formel Q manuals. Now they are available only at Volkswagen portal. Even if you are not a supplier to Volkswagen, you can ask authorization to access. That would be one first step for a company willing to become Volkswagen supplier. And then you can find these booklets inside. And as you can see, here they seem all equal, but if you see here in the left top corner, there are different topics. So the Formel Q, we are going to talk about the Konkret manual that is considered as the contractual relation in between Volkswagen and the supplier. But as you will see also in the Konkret, there will be relations to the Formel Q new parts integral, that is related with the development of new products, the Formel Q capability, that is dedicated to the full life cycle of the product, from the development up to the end of service delivery. And if you are coming to the capability, there's where you can find details about VDA 6.3 or Formel Q process audit. But it's not only VDA 6.3 requirements that are reflected there. There are additional requirements to the VDA 6.3 that are reflected here in this Formel Q capability appendix. Okay? And for those of you involved with embedded software, there is also the Formel Q capability software. What has been released now was only these two new books that are here in front. We are not going to talk about this last one, that existed also before. That is the Formel Q Konkret brand-specific requirements. So this is Volkswagen Group, but maybe Audi or Porsche or Ducati have slightly different interpretations inside Volkswagen. So you need also to consult these brand-specific requirements. But what we are going to talk about is the Formel Q Konkret, released in March 25, so we are already almost in July. So pay attention to audits from Volkswagen, from IATF, and that's what we will be talking about. So also why? This is an individual interpretation. What we are talking about? Software, let me come down to the last comment. The car, the vehicle, is more than ever a digital system on wheels. All of us have it on our car. Software, electronics, connectivity inside the vehicle, but also connectivity among vehicles. And when we are talking about autonomous driving, when we are talking about EV charging, we are talking about connectivity. Connectivity of the car being driven on the road, connectivity to other cars, and even when you are charging a hybrid or electrical vehicle, also the connectivity to the grid, to the electricity supply system of the country or the region that you are using. So all of these, all things that we can immediately see driving, but also everything that is happening behind the curtains. So since our car, as we are already more or less used with our laptops or with our mobile phones, it is exposed to cyber risks. It is exposed to access, authorized or non-authorized. We keep on, I don't know if this is familiar for most of you, over-the-air failures, okay? So how many of you have already come to your car and your infotainment system is not working? Okay, at least with my car, I have it very regular, sometimes in inconvenient times when I'm driving to a place that I don't know, just arriving to the toll bridge, and all of a sudden the car decides to make an update on the GPS, and I have to make a decision going left or going right. That's the updates that the car is receiving, a little bit like Wi-Fi that they receive directly to update the systems. If we are talking about a Tesla, a comment from a Tesla driver, one day he left the car in the park, connected to the grid. The other day he was coming and he had an information. Now your autonomy has increased by X%, not because it changed the batteries, but because the brand release a new release of the software that improved the performance of the car. So if this can happen on an authorized way, of course that it can be also a door for non-authorized attacks. And with increased connectivity, increased relation including to safety systems. So of course that the risks are increasing. Of course that together with that, legislation is coming up, also being updated and reinforced. So sometimes we can see that in this fast changing world, sometimes the technology might be available while the legislation is not yet updated, but it's coming up to the expected level. So legal frameworks, UN ECE related requirements, legal requirements associated to product liability are coming up more and more. Compliance with standards for cybersecurity, for GDPR, because the car is coming with us, so the car knows wherever we are driving. So all of this is coming more and more as a need to manage in terms of risks. So this new edition, what is it bringing? New certifications in terms of cybersecurity. TISAX, it was already mandatory from the previous edition, but pay attention that these 21434 and TISAX are not the same. It's not the same situation. TISAX is related to information security, to protect the industrial knowledge in terms of confidentiality and so on as a system to our companies. This ISO is related to the connectivity of the car itself. So it's not exactly the same. VDA standards that have changed, and before there was another book. Now they are bringing this PAS 5112 as a tool to verify the implementation of the cybersecurity measures. The PSCR is becoming more and more focused, but also the cybersecurity responsible, and also the deployment of all of these, and this is really necessary to pay attention. Volkswagen interpretation is that it is the tier one responsibility to manage all the supply chain, okay? Situation is that some of the tier ones are very detailed in doing such. I'm remembering a supplier, a big tier one, that they have their own CSRs for their suppliers, but then they have different appendix depending on the OEM that they are supplying. And Volkswagen is one of them. But there are also other suppliers that simply leave it in a generic way. Okay, I'm the tier one, I'm telling the tier two, you have to comply with all my requirements and OEM requirements. But I'm not saying exactly what are the OEM requirements. So it's up to the tier two to come and ask what are those and discuss if they can comply or not, or to get a derogation. That can happen as well. So this situation, Rita is going to speak about this. There is one more, I didn't write it here, but just to mention another topic that is coming more and more, sustainability. Sustainability, environmental related requirements, recycled materials, the use of recycled approved materials, of course approved, but all the legal requirements also related to end of life of vehicles regarding the self-assessments in terms of sustainability is another one of the topics that Volkswagen is reinforcing a lot. Implications. Well, to get the manual, read it, and implement the necessary changes. Certifications, including TISAX, the assessment, the traceability and periodic revalidation. Here, I need to confirm this. They changed the wording from the layout inspection. They are now using the requalification. And I have here 5 years, but I will check even during the webinar for the 3 years. But don't forget one thing. This is for the requalification. the DTLD, meaning the special characteristics, the ones related with safety and regulation, the product audit and the DTLD self-audit is still every 12 months. It's not yearly, it's different, it's valid only for 12 months, and that remains as such. For those of you involved with software or connectivity in your components, to pay attention to the new certifications and to the new requirements that Rita is going to highlight, and the legal responsibility of the PSCR. Legal responsibility is not the same of being automatic, the guilty person. Again, it's the legal responsible because Formel Q Konkret is binding, is a contract, so is the responsible as the contact person and as the person to implement those requirements stated in the book. It's the first person to be contacted, but it's not automatic the guilt person. That is the one that by in Portuguese, dolo, so meaning on purpose. I don't know the legal word in English. So the one that on purpose or by negligence let the accident or the situation happen. So from our side, I will not extend very much here, but you can have here. This will be made available later on the presentation. So most of you already know our services. So this is one of them that we are reinforcing in the last year, and we have received several requests from customers, not only for OEM requirements, but even for Tier 1 requirements. So that's a service that we do. And without further ado, I will pass on remote, recorded then to Rita. Thank you very much. I'll come back after Rita, and I'm using the time to see if there is already some questions. Raquel, can you please pass over?
Good morning to everyone. Today we will see the new changes or the changes from Formel Q last version March 2025. And in these changes, the key are new sustainability requirements and use of recycled materials, enhanced cybersecurity compliance criteria, update supplier and subcontractor approval process, increase of KBP digital platform for documentation that we already know from the past, detailed certification and series production verification rules. Okay, and we will see chapter by chapter the new changes or the main changes in this new version. The language still same the German edition, especially binding. Affiliated companies can define a different language version as a binding for contracts with suppliers. And also on the preface, we can see contains quality requirements for supplier companies. It is part of order and must be observed unconditionally when submitted an offer. New challenges such as digitalization, data security, and sustainability are taken into account. We're still using the Formel Q publication series stored in the current valid version in 1 on business platform KBP from Volkswagen Group Supply. And also we have in this topic, we have a change. The designated supplier database, or in the past we call it LDB, now we call it SDB, although the acronym LDB is still used in the text. Also, the supplier requirements or database information includes the name of product safety of compliance officer, or as we call it PSCR, QA contact, cybersecurity contact, info on certificates quality management, environment, TSAX, and cybersecurity. And what about IT systems requirements or required? In this case, we need to use the application SDB, KPM, KVS, Leon, and beyond in the secure area of 1 kbp required. And as we're talking about environment, and in this version, we use recycled materials, but they use it permitted only in accordance with customer technical documentation, like drawings or specifications. Applicable framework conditions, in particular the standard Volkswagen 50026 for plastics and Volkswagen 91107 for metals and other materials. And these two standards must be observed. As we say, cybersecurity management and compliance requirements are the focus, and for this, we need to prove through valid certification from an accredited organization compliance with ISO 21434 audit, and this audit is according to ISO PAS 51112. In addition to the customer-specific requirements, a prerequisite for one-site development contract, Formel Q capability software requirements, and evidence of successful audit according to ISO PAS 5112. And for the new suppliers and development suppliers, as we say, the supplier concept development, the offer content, and this offer must at least consider design description like geometry, materials, functions, and software. If relevant, cybersecurity, presentation of cybersecurity management system in the supply chain. If relevant, software, taking account requirements for software suppliers, as we can see on chapter 3.4, other items like project organization, process, deadlines, testing, sub-suppliers management, quality objectives, plausibility analysis, commitment, risks, costs, feasibility, logistics, and packaging must be taken into account. And also, for the selection of sub-suppliers, only the customer-approved companies use it as a subcontractors for painting or chrome-plated components with customer-relevant surface on plastics substrates. Chrome plating of metal surface as well as high-strength fasteners and sealants. And what about the external service providers? And these ones, on behalf of suppliers, may only be used after one-site consultation and the customer premise. And the manufacturers of customer visible surface are evaluated and approved for allocation decisions. Before it was for assignment decisions. Now we need to take into account that it's allocation decisions. And what about after that? We have the product approval process. And we also designate as a production process and product approval, as we call it PPA. On the past, we call it PPS. Now it's designated by PPA, valid until end of series, EOS, based on VDA Volume 2 and other agreed procedure, refer to VDA, production process and product approval. And also, we need to take into account the cooperation during the product or emergence process, software, retention, and correction. For software-based system, the supplier must be able to implement error corrections that the customer deems necessary up to 15 years after the end of production, or EOP component. Supplier must keep delivered software available and fulfill conditions for modification delivery according to KGAS requirements. Then we have some products requirement certification. As we had it on the past, we still having. According the audit report on action plan on chapter 4.3.1.5, the TLD self-audit form at 1 kbp includes all relevant issues and information on parts volumes that require documentation. For products in the pre-series phase, the supplier must ensure that all questions have been answered with yes, no later than the 0 series stock in plant, date of PPA process completion, and for products in series production, the supplier must immediately define further measures in the event of detected deviations and inform the quality assurance of all receiving parts in writing. The weakness reported must be eliminated by the start and date. If the above points are not fulfilled, the quality capability is downgraded to C. It means new business on hold, and if necessary, the supplier is added to the critical supplier program. Associated valid documents like component certificates, factory inspection report, DTLD self-audit result must be uploaded to the customer system or made available in time. And also, during the series production continues, we need to do a verification or periodic inspection. On the past, we called it layout inspection. Now, on the chapter 4.7, it was called requalification. And the supplier must assure quality by carrying out a requalification of this scope of supplier in accordance with IATF and in accordance with VDA volume robust production process. The customer requires a complete requalification at least every 3 years. The requalification starts with the completion of PPA process, and the cycles must be defined by the legislation, governmental agencies, or component-specific requirements in the specifications. Example, we can see it on the product or project specifications and must be implemented. Unless agreed otherwise with the customer, the scope of the requalification to be presented will correspond to the PPAP production, product process and production approval. The results must be documented internally, stored securely, and presented to the customer on request. Products with specific characteristics or authorization DTLD subject to the requalification every 12 months. And talking about DTLD, and we can say about on the chapter 4.2, product safety and product liability. Our relevant personnel received detailed information and training on product safety and product liability issues, amongst other functional security and cybersecurity based on the VDA volume product integrity. The quality capability of the production process is guaranteed and proven, and the likelihood of defective products is minimized using appropriate quality assurance measures during the serial production. Supplier also must ensure that the personnel employed for sorting and reworking activities are qualified and equipment in state of art. Necessary documentation created for qualified performance. If the supplier's personnel cannot implement the action, a service provider approved by the customer must be commissioned in accordance with the customer. And when we have, or how we handling the warranty complaints, we have some changes on the table, no trouble found table, and the main changes are the Bugatti is not listed on the table. About Audi, AG, Porsche, AG, Bentley, Skoda, and Seat, we still with 10 parts. Volkswagen passenger cars, Volkswagen commercial vehicles, we still with 20 parts, and Traton, Lamborghini, must be agreed on a customer in specific basis. And the last pages are abbreviations and glossary that we can say what we can say about this. The Critical Supplier Program, PQR, Direct Buys, KGAs, POCAIOC, updates to the definition of special characteristics to also mention attributive characteristics. Defines TSACs with more detail and expected levels, and the definition of BMG has been removed from the glossary and mentioned in a footnote in another section. I hope these new updates were clear for you, and now we go to the questions that can support your doubts until now or clarify some doubts that you have it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay. So I think you can hear me back. Maybe you noticed during Rita's presentation there were one or two questions here on the chat. But now I invite you to ask questions, turn the microphone on, and let's see what is coming up. Some questions, some comments, please. No? Everything clear? So one question from Ana Ribeiro. When is this version coming in active, and if there is a transition period defined? I believe it is already applicable. So let me share here. That's a good question. So here I'm going directly to the book. Okay. So updated version March 2025. Preface and general provisions. I didn't come across any due date to implement it, so I would say that this is effective as from the date that it is published. Request of a preparation and so on. Let me show you also another topic. I'll come back to this one in a while, that I was opening here in between while Rita's presentation was on. So this is the IATF, just to show you also, sorry, here, because we can discuss this, but that's not the topic here. Volkswagen published the Formel Q Konkret, right? But as you can see, this is from March 2022, what they have on the IATF website. And what you can see here is they refer already the Formel Q Konkret and the chapter, okay? So even if there is updates on these books, on the Formel Q, this one is active, so it's referring always to the last edition. So coming to this, and since these new requirements, and as you can see here, this is the IT systems and so on, what is relevant here is to define together with them. Probably not here in the book, but when you receive either new RFQs or when you are preparing new products according to the requirements from the KPNY, the Quality New Parts Integral, to define what is the due date for these implementations. Okay. So for this, for us auditors, IATF auditors, this is now the valid version, and that's the one that needs to be taken in consideration. Okay, another question. If Tier 2 are obliged to comply with Formel Q altogether, or if it can be negotiated? Well, it can be negotiated. The no is always assured. I don't know if there is a right way to say this in English, but in Portuguese, o não está sempre garantido. Ou seja, you can always propose changes, and maybe there is other ways to do it. I don't know of any case direct from a Tier 1 to Volkswagen. I don't know of any case that has been derogated or something like that. What can happen is, coming to the previous question, is to define a period to implement. For instance, that happened, and maybe some of you passed for this situation, when it was the TISAX. It was required already from the previous edition of the Formel Q. But before that, there were those nice ways to put it from Volkswagen asking, okay, dear supplier, you need to comply with this. It's not mandatory in commas, but if you don't go for it, you will not receive any new RFQs. But it was not, you need to have it by tomorrow. So there was an implementation period. Of course, that implementation, that due date becomes binding, becomes mandatory, and there can be some consequences out of that. But yes, you can have derogations. If you are talking about not the OEM and Tier 1, but between Tier 1 and Tier 2, yes, I know a few cases of derogations, but as any derogation, those are valid during a period of time or a quantity of parts. So in this case, typically a period of time. So a Tier 1 working with the Tier 2 on a new project, and specific topics being, okay, you don't need to have it by now or by SOP, but for the next project or engineering change or within 1 year, in that case, you must have it. Also, some situations that can happen, and now it split me. For instance, topics that are not, well, TISAX and this cybersecurity are not something that you can do it one day to the other. But even some other topics like VDA 5, the counterpart for the MSA, well, if you don't have it completely implemented, maybe during an audit it can be a classification of 8 or 6. Well, it will be a non-conformity, but it's nothing that you cannot live with. So this can happen. So also from João Ramos, regarding recycling, I didn't get the whole requirement. Is it documented in any VW standard? Is it negotiable during sourcing phase? Well, I don't have it by memory, but when you are coming here to the and also on RFQs and even in the drawings, sorry, I don't have it by memory, but Volkswagen standard 55 something or something like that are also, and this VW 99, if I'm not wrong, there are standards already from Volkswagen taking to this. But pay attention, this recycling, this is not because Volkswagen decides like that. It's a legal requirement. But the directive, I don't know the number by heart as well, but directive X6000 from the European Union, the end of life of vehicles, is stating these requirements. So let me see in a very fast way. ELV directive 2053 EC. It's not going, but it's this one. So you see Eurolex, so this is legal requirement. So coming to the situations, depending on the materials, for instance, talking about plastic part, and not only for cars, here we are talking about automotive, but it's very common that you find in the plastic parts in between the higher or lower signs, those side V, to have PCABS, PP, or whatever, that is related with the recycling of the vehicle at the end of the life when the car is going to be scrapped, basically. So it's legal requirement. So if they are negotiable, probably not. Inês Lisboa, in case of non-applicable requirements, if they can't be considered as such. Well, for instance, if your part does not have embedded software, these requirements for software are not applicable. So you can document that in other ways, but of course, if it is not applicable, there can be some situations that the non-applicable is not that direct. Discuss it with Volkswagen during development stages better, and document as such. I'm saying document as such because coming back to the IATF, you have a requirement that you need to have the process approach, and you need to have a kind of matrix or table that says each requirement of the IATF, where is it applicable in your process map. And you need to have that too also for the CSRs. So you can use a matrix like that to document it. It's a document relevant for your IATF audits, and you can have that documented in your system and based upon communications with Volkswagen to support it. Francisco has raised his hand. Would you like
Hello, Pedro.
to
Hello, everybody.
Francisco?
Bom dia a
Yes.
todos. So, only highlight one point regarding the application about the Formel Q in the supply chain. My point of view is the following: regarding on the tier 2, tier 3, we must be careful regarding any agreement that can be done with the customer himself, tier 1, or even tier 3 to tier 2, to be sure that OEM agreed on that to avoid the risk later on. The product will not follow the complete OEM requirements, and we can have some problems later on in the field. That's only my point of view on that, to be careful on that.
Okay. Just to comment a little bit, to have problems on the field, that's something completely different. Field failure safety regulation, when I said to have a derogation, I was not mentioning about specifications or comply or to be conform with. I was talking about, for instance, that situation to go to the VDA 5, okay, from MSA, from a simple R&R to VDA 5. Okay, you have 1 year to make the transition, okay? So to keep things, because as I was saying just now, a legal requirement to be derogated, very, I would doubt it very much. And if that happened, and I have one case like this, if that happened, okay, it can happen. A guy from a customer saying, okay, you don't need to comply with this. Then the case is the authority of that person. If he or she have the authority to derogate that, probably not. So thank you, Francisco. But to highlight safety and regulation and conformity, PSCR, conformity and liability, always to be taken in consideration.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Some more questions. Which are the main changes in selection of sub-suppliers? So I didn't go deep on that, but it can happen that some situations will come to the directed by concept. In plain English, mandatory suppliers. So Rita mentioned that for some painting applications, chroming, so situations related with surface, with appearance, there can be this situation. Volkswagen is not talking about specific suppliers in this type of document, but you need to pay attention during a RFQ if you are, for instance, a tier one or a supplier of a decorated part, and you are not doing that process if there is some mandatory supplier. That's normal already for the raw materials, for the plastic, for instance. Now they are coming also for the paint applications, chroming, and so on. It's not strange because some of you probably have had this experience already. Volkswagen has also the so-called review application. Okay, maybe some of you come to that when you are using the Formel Q, the VDA, the process audit. In the lower part where you define the process group, process steps, product groups, and so on, you have a lower line asking for application review. What is it? It's a little bit the counterpart for those CQIs, the 12 and 11, if I'm not wrong. So it's a type of process audit specifically for those applications. So Volkswagen was already on top of that. Now they decide also to have some requirements for those suppliers. Okay, requalification. I was wrong. The slide I had before, it was wrong. It's not the 5 years, it's still the 3 years. So I already changed year. I can show you also here in the booklet, qualification. So where is it? If I can find, yeah, here it is. Customers of Volkswagen requires a complete requalification at least every 3 years. Okay, but again, and I don't know if it is also part of the next question. Main changes, warranties. No, I think there was one question regarding special characteristics, but no. But to come to this, Volkswagen, opposite to most of the OEMs that are asking the requalification or the layout inspection and functional tests every year, Volkswagen is asking it every 3 years. But pay attention to this. Requalification, it will be the complete pack of tests and measurements. That is every 3 years. But every 12 months, you have the DTLD self-evaluation that implies product audit to those characteristics, if you have those characteristics, okay? And that is not 3 years, is not 1 year, is every 12 months. Even if you don't have DTLD characteristics, you will have the Formel Q self-evaluation, the VDA related. Also that, it's different from a simple VDA 6.3 audit, P5 to P7, because you need also to declare the product audit. And that is also valid every 12 months. So yes, the requalification is 3 years, but whatever is DTLD, safety, regulations, and so on, or whatever is the product audit, so the main characteristics, even functional for the product, you need to do the product audit every 12 months, okay? Main changes of handling of warranty claims and special cases, MTF. So this is still from Anna. I'm not sure if I understand the question. There was some changes in the last edition, okay? So this type of table, as it is here, I don't know by heart if they change exactly some wording or not, but what happened even from the previous edition of the Formel Q. So, you know, the warranty analysis, the process to evaluate warranty claims, and the NTF, that is already part of the IATF since 2016. It's part of the Formel Q capability appendix already since a few editions at least. But there, what is Volkswagen say? That the supplier must use VDA Field Failure Analysis book. And in that book, it's a customer-specific requirement from VW. In that book, VDA defines the normal stuff, the standard tests, followed by the load tests, then the criteria for the NTF process, and then what is a NTF process, with going to the dealerships or evaluating other markets or continuing the tests after the specification. So that is defined in the VDA book. What is not defined there is the NTF criteria, so the trigger criteria to go from the load tests to the NTF process. That's what Volkswagen did in the previous edition of the Formel Q. So here they are already saying that starting from an NTF percentage of 30%, supplier is obliged to initiate the NTF. And then they have even specific situations, numbers of parts to determine those 30% and so on. So what did they do? They didn't expect to have a specific agreement in between Volkswagen and Tier 1 to go topic by topic. They simply put here a table, and that is binding to all suppliers. Now the question here is it reasonable for your type of situation? Is it those 30% out of 20 parts and things like that? Is that applicable? It depends on the product. It depends on the incidents on the field. So here, coming to the questions you made about the negotiation, it's not exactly a negotiation if it is applicable or not, but you can come to a specific agreement that overcomes that table. So define it's not 30%, it's 50%, is whatever. And you can do that when defining the technical factors. So all of that can be taken in consideration. Recommendation is basically do that as soon as possible to be able to come to an agreement while it is still time to do such. Okay, Elsa, bom dia, Elsa. Regarding the recycling materials, there is a specific list of approved recycled materials. Question. And about for specific plastic materials, the flammability compliance yellow card. Yellow card, what do you mean? Here, I'm not aware of this situation. Approved materials lists, yes, they exist. I'm not aware if they have already some recycled material, probably yes. In terms of the flammability, it's also a legal requirement, okay? And in case of Volkswagen, it's related with the TL1010, so that needs still to be considered. Here, regarding the yellow card, if you are mentioned this as related to some type of result, I have to say that I'm not aware of it. Okay. Digitalization and Industry 4.0. Talking from the top of my head, I'm not seeing here exactly some demands. And even talking about other OEMs, what I can remember is, for instance, Ford, that is requiring a software for the FMEA. Okay, you can include it in the digitalization or Industry 4.0. Honestly, OEMs and IATF are not very much concerned about the efficiency of the supplier. That requirement from Ford, okay, it's not because of the efficiency, it's not because of being easier for the supplier, is for being more robust, is to make sure that whatever you are doing on the PFMEA is going to be deployed to the control plan. If you are doing that on Excel sheets, well, copy paste and things like that, it can fail. It can also fail in an informatic system, but it's more automatic. Here that I can remember, I didn't see any topic regarding to that. I saw only as a comment during the weekend a commentary for the new ISO 9001. It's expected to be released the DIS, Draft of International Standard, by September. But some guys already got a sample or something like that. So I just saw a comment that it was expected also to have comments on digitalization, Industry 4.0, but that there were no major news. So maybe for the ISO, maybe for an IETF that might come up later on. Here for the Formel Q, not that I'm aware of. Will the update affect the frequency or format of supplier reporting? Supplier reporting, you mean the self-evaluation or the DTLD? Those, as far as I saw, the last verifications a couple of days ago, they are still the same formats. So they have not been impacted here. Okay, I don't know if you mentioned any other format, but at least for those is still the same. João Ramos, it is important to negotiate what testing will be done every 3 years. At least we have worked like this so far. Yes, it's a very good comment and a very good practice. If nothing is negotiated, 100% applies. If you negotiate and you come to an agreement, what you are saying is, I'm complying with the IETF requirement, I'm complying with the Formel Q requirement, but the scope of the tests has been agreed with the customer. So perfectly normal. If they agree that you don't do all the tests, this can be applicable typically for long duration tests, aging tests and things like that, or very specific tests that take long, expensive, but that can be also covered by other situations. So yes, very good advice to go for this, not only with Volkswagen, but with any other customer, OEM or Tier 1. Only those software responsible. Good question, Nuno. Bom dia, Nuno. I will have to confirm that. Only for those software responsible. Let me take the comment and come back because, yeah, it makes sense. Trying to think a little bit, but I cannot answer this. And the VDA, I made another mistake in the presentation. It's not VDA PAS, it's ISO PAS, the same situation. I'll take note about this. Raquel is going to confirm. I don't have here my pen. Raquel is going to confirm, please, if we can get like a a generic mail address with all the participants, and then these questions that were not answered, or if there is further information, we will put in that mail list and send to all of you. Okay. Okay, some more questions. I hope I answered the questions. Sometimes by reading, I was not exactly sure if that was the question or if I answered. Nevertheless, please, Clara, bom dia. Nevertheless, feel free to contact back, okay? As normal, by email or nowadays by email, by SMS, by WhatsApp, or whatever. Just send your comments. I don't promise anymore to reply in the same day, but I think that at least until the weekend I will be able to respond. If not more like this, I will check and confirm and then come back to you. Thank you very much. If there is no further questions, thank you for participating. Thank you for the questions. very interesting. Also for us, as I was saying in the beginning, is also a way for us to become of situations like this, and that we can all together improve. Thank you very much. Raquel, would you like to say some words?
Yes, yes. I'd like to say that all of you will receive the link with the webinar recording and also the certificate of participation. And as Pedro was saying, we will also send the answers of some of the questions that weren't answered here. So we hope you enjoyed this webinar, and we look forward to seeing you at future events. Thank you very much. Stay tuned, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.